So welcome everyone to our StartEngine Summer 2022 edition webinar for the StartEngine crowdfunding platform. I am Steph Larock. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of AutoCASE. I'm based out of Toronto, Canada. John Williams is our CEO. We are the co-founders. We actually had one other as well. He's based in New York City. Our corporation is based out of New York City. We also have a Toronto office. We're going to take turns asking each other these questions as if it was from you guys and answering in turn. So I'm going to start by asking John the first question as an example. Should be a cool format, hopefully. As I said before we started recording, if people do have questions they'd like to ask, please put them in the chat, or even better, what StartEngine wants us to do is you guys to put them in the comments section of the campaign page, thereby requiring us to answer them for everyone to see. So that's actually the preferred format for StartEngine. So happy to do that as well. Let me see. By the way, we probably will do another webinar, possibly with a different format. This time we don't have any PowerPoint slides or anything like that. Like I said, it's not a presentation type format. I wouldn't be surprised before the race is over if we do one like that, but we thought we'd start off with answering some of these many questions. So let me kick it off by asking John the very first question that we have in our list here. John, can you tell me how the backstory of AutoCASE was founded?
I'd be happy to, Steph, but first I want to welcome everyone, particularly John Parker, one of our original founders. John retired a couple of years ago and is a great friend of ours. R.T. Myers, one of the original investors in the company. She and her husband are still investors in the company, as is her son, Ryan. I should also say that Steph and I have worked together for about 15 years. Before we created this company, we worked together in another company called HDR. This is a large international architecture, engineering, and consulting organization, about 8,000 employees when I retired from HDR. Steph ran their environmental economics services practice, and I worked through a series of progressive roles in the company, including Senior Vice President and National Director of Sustainable Development. I tell you these things because our job was to help grow HDR to about 1.5 billion in revenue by the time we left that company. I had the good fortune of being one of the original owners and the largest shareholder in the company. So AutoCASE is not our first venture. That's my point. Fast forward a bit, once we received our original seed financing from Autodesk, two different companies, AutoCASE and Autodesk, we were joined by other partners with experience in software product development. And together we grew from 3 people, an Excel spreadsheet, and a very good reputation to an actual SaaS business with commercial products, sector-leading customers, and a growing revenue stream. So that's the short version of the backstory.
John, how would you describe AutoCASE in a couple of paragraphs?
Well, first of all, AutoCASE is a team of people with backgrounds in software development and economic analysis. You've already met my partner, Steph Larock, our Chief Operating Officer. We have 2 other partners. Caitlin Lawson came to us from PwC, and she's our VP of Product and Digital Solutions. And Eric Bill is our Chief Economist, followed us into this company from HDR, and is responsible for the services side of our business. But first and foremost, we are a SaaS company, a software as a service company. What we've done is we've automated business case analysis, basically pragmatic economics tools, to better inform decisions that are made when you're creating a new or a retrofitted building, or a new or an expanded infrastructure installation, say a transit station, for instance. To put it simply, and this is really important, it's sort of crude, but it's important. we answer the what's in it for me question that goes with every investment in a building. Okay. And whether you know it or not, or you realize it or not, you make these decisions every day. If you get up in the morning and discover your refrigerator has conked out for good, you immediately start making economic analysis decisions about what to do about it. Do you get it repaired? Do you buy a new one? Do you buy an energy efficient one? How much will that cost in terms of more? How much will it save over time? On and on and on. So it could be an air conditioner, it could be a furnace, it could be a roof, it could be replacement windows. Or if you're dealing at the scale that we are in buildings that run $5 million, $50 million, 500 million, $1 billion, there are literally thousands of decisions that get made as the building is planned that require some analysis of what's in it for me. What's in it for me if I'm the building owner, if I'm the building occupant, if I'm the building host community. So that's what we do. And it's what's in it for me from a financial, social, and environmental return on investment perspective, as well as what's in it for me in terms of returns on expenditures aimed at, for instance, reducing the carbon footprint of this building. So we use cloud-based computing, objective economic analysis, transparency, and documentation to help building owners, occupants, users, and host communities see how specific decisions deliver either positive or negative returns that matter to them and what those returns are worth. So that's a couple of paragraphs stuff.
Okay. John, for you, it's often said that timing is critical to a company's success. How has that worked out for AutoCASE?
Well, we were a first mover. And so if any of you are familiar with what that means, it's a blessing and a curse. I mean, you have a chance to create a business that no one else is in, where there's little to no competition, where there's wide open territory to grow a business. On the other hand, you enter a marketplace that's not used to your kind of product, not even aware that such a product or such analysis exists. So it was a positive, mostly a positive, but a little bit of a negative. From a positive point of view, it's what attracted Autodesk's attention to us in the first place. And if you studied our campaign page, you know that Autodesk provided $2 million in seed funding for our company, and they became a strategic partner to help us actually leverage cloud-based computing and actually grow into a real live software company. Today, they hold a minority stake in the company, but they definitely, next to me, hold more shares than anyone else. On the negative side, again, as a first mover, we had to sort of wake the industry up to the potential that our software has to offer. So, and also there was a time when creating sustainable buildings or low carbon buildings didn't seem to matter too much. Fortunately, those times have passed us now. So in that period of time, the waking time, we used that time to our advantage. We rolled up our sleeves, we identified the top sector players in each of our vertical categories, and we started working with them and learning more and more about their workflows, their needs, what their customers were interested in, and how our product could better serve them. So by January of 2017, we launched AutoCASE for Buildings, our first commercial product. Sales started to grow, and more industry leaders became our customers. And even today, we serve, I think, 5 or 6 verticals: the architecture, engineering, construction world, commercial real estate, airports, publicly traded companies, public entities like cities, counties, state, federal government agencies, and FANG companies. And now we're moving into multinational companies. It was that work and that launch done during that waking period that positioned us to be responsive to all their needs. And at the same time, it gave us the advantage, the huge advantage of establishing a competitive beachhead and space that we dominate even today. So that's all good news.
So John, I got a question for you. How did the pandemic affect AutoCASE?
The pandemic. It was bad news. It was bad news for everyone. In hindsight, it wasn't nearly as bad as we thought it could be. In one way that it was bad is the commercial real estate market and the architecture, engineering, construction market froze at the very beginning of the pandemic because there were questions. Are people even going to go to office buildings again or other types of buildings? Are people going to commission architects to design or construct buildings ever again? There were a lot of questions out there as to the future of investing in the built environment. Well, we knew that there would be an end to the pandemic, so we made a conscious decision to plow forward. And as I told our people, there's going to be an end to this. Think of it as an end to a pipeline. And we're going to use this time to better prepare our company to respond to what comes out of the other end of the pipeline. I said, pretend as though you've got a big catcher's mitt on and you're determined to capture all of these opportunities that come your way. So what we did in that period of time, we did a couple of things. First of all, we continued to collaborate with our customers to make our flagship product, AutoCASE for Buildings, more responsive to their needs. Secondly, we made a conscious decision that our tools or our company would create a decision support platform for people who are planning the delivery of buildings or retrofitted buildings and need to have a better understanding of the ramifications of their decision. So in order to create that platform, we collaborated with a bunch of other companies that integrated into our platform. So companies like One Click LCA for lifecycle cost analysis, Cove Tool and WattTime for energy modeling, RS Means for cost estimating, Incentive Find for financing, and ARC for building operations. Those are just a few of them. And at the same time, in 2021, still in the height of the pandemic, we had a key customer come our way who was aware of our reputation for building research and building performance and economic analysis. They're a large multinational corporation that we all know, but we're under an NDA, so I can't reveal their name. They'd made major commitments to net zero carbon compliance, but they had assets all over the world, and they were worried about how they were going to manage their way to compliance with their commitments. So in short, we work with them to create our latest product called CarbonSite, which is in beta right now. And you're going to hear more about CarbonSite in a moment, but in a nutshell, it's a single point portfolio, building portfolio, global carbon management dashboards that's needed by C-suites of many multinational companies. Well, that product was released into beta in June, just in time for the onslaught of multinational commitments to net zero carbon. I believe more than 1,200 companies have committed so far, 1,000 universities, 1,000 municipalities, and 1,000 communities, 1,000 universities, and 400 financial institutions. That's what I'm trying to say. So all those things were good news. They were actually gifts of the pandemic. That it allowed us time and resources to apply to being ready for the future. It also put us into a position where the stars have aligned over our company, and we'll talk about that more in a few minutes. So, Steph, another one for you. The last time AutoCASE raised, it was on the Seed Invest platform, and this time you've chosen StartEngine. Can you explain why?
Sure. So that's no doubt a popular question for a lot of people who might not even have asked it. Mostly it's about keeping our options open, exploring different options. We were pretty happy with SeedVest. We're pretty happy with StartEngine now as well. There's quite a few differences. I won't, we're not sure what the third one would be. I think we would consider going with Seed Invest again another time. I know a lot of successful firms that have more than one crowd raise do move around. So we thought it would be a good idea to try another platform. Some of the things we like about StartEngine that are different than the Seed Invest platform is there's more of an emphasis on marketing. They have a longer time at which you can your investment can stay open. So there was a shorter window where you were open at Seed Invest. And the other one is StartEngine has more total members, which was also compelling as well. So in the interest of time, I'll just leave it there. So John, can you speak to the business environment AutoCASE is facing right now?
Well, I mentioned a moment ago, the stars, or perhaps a galaxy of stars, have aligned over our business. Just at a time when we're ready to scale, there have been massive public sector commitments to sustainability, resilience, and carbon reduction growing around the world. The recent infrastructure and IRA bills in the United States are directing hundreds of billions of dollars in public funding toward energy, environmental, and climate goals. And the world of impact and ESG investors is directing trillions of dollars into the same objectives of lifting society and healing our planet. In each of these cases, there's a hunger for objective data on which to guide these investments and assess their results. So if you don't remember anything from this webinar, remember this: AutoCASE measures, values, and documents those outcomes, okay? And we help major cities, counties, and states. We help federal agencies make spending cases for higher performing buildings. And in the private sector, we help customers, including FANG companies, major commercial real estate companies, and leading names amongst publicly traded companies decide where best to spend their money in their buildings. You can see those logos on our campaign page. Steph, who would you consider to be our most high profile customers?
What a good segue question. In terms of what I would highlight, I mean, John mentioned a bunch of categories. Right now we have 6 of the top 10 architecture firms in the United States as customers. So that is very significant. Now, that doesn't mean every architect at these firms are using AutoCASE, but it means they are paying customers, and we are growing our presence with companies like Gensler and Stantec and HKS and HOK and with Jacobs, Perkins Eastman. Those are 6 of the top 10 and our customers. I would add on to that a couple of really big airports. Atlanta's the busiest airport in the world. That's one of our customers. San Francisco Airport, not surprising, very interested in sustainability, is another key client. I would throw out Arup, the giant engineering firm. And last but not least, John has mentioned a few times a big FANG company, which is one of the big 5 tech companies. If you're not familiar with that term, I think maybe they say Mang now that Facebook is called Meta. But basically it's a giant tech firm. And I would say those are the top 10, according to me. John, does AutoCASE plan to expand beyond their focus in North America?
We have to, because our long-term goal is to change the world. And the only way we can really do that is to reach around the world. And the path to that reach are the multinationals, that very large companies, presence in many countries, under a lot of regulatory pressure to reduce their carbon footprint, to deliver social and environmental positive outcomes. They also have stakeholders and customers who expect them to perform better than the average company. So that's, again, our Carbon Sight product is designed specifically for multinationals to help their C-suites manage their way through their portfolios to compliance. I also want to mention, amongst those 10 players, one reason we started with architecture and engineering companies is think of the camel's nose under the tent. They introduced our type of analysis into their building projects. Building owners embraced our data. So building owners became our customers, and then building owners shared that data with their investors, tenants, and the people who provide their capital. So now, instead of only serving the AEC community, we've got the entire gamut of building ownership and development. Steph, where do you see AutoCASE 5 years from now, and how do you plan to get there?
So I will give probably a slightly briefer answer than I was thinking, because as usual, John, you and I are quite verbose in our answers. But I would say off the top of my head, one, carbon site, you've already mentioned it. It's really taking everything we've learned so far and focusing it on a bigger market opportunity. Basically, people are being required to care about carbon, unlike at any other time in the past. Climate change is not going away. The impacts are only growing, and there's more and more regulation, requirement, etc. So carbon site's going to be a big driver of our growth in the next 5 years. Autodesk, our first seed investor, is another big opportunity that we are looking at. We're in talks with them to, as we have been before, but now they're maybe more realizing the importance of carbon for them is greater than it's ever been as well. And those who might be attending AutoCASE University, their big Autodesk University, their big tech conference coming up, you'd see sustainability play a much bigger role than it ever has before for them as well. So we think that further collaboration with Autodesk is going to really help drive growth. And then last but not least, we are finally facing, or not facing, we're finally realizing some tailwinds instead of some of the headwinds we've been facing over the last, several years, in terms of changes at the federal level, or COVID as well. Those were some real headwinds we were facing over the last few years that have really turned to tailwinds as the market and industry focuses much more closely to kind of things that we have expertise in. John, well, actually, we'll just keep going. What's the best point in customer workflow to use AutoCASE products?
Well, the earlier the better, everyone. When the decisions are made that cast the die basically for how a building will perform, that's when we want to start our involvement with the project. Though we have customers that use our tools at every step of the development process, all the way through commissioning operations and decommissioning. A moment ago, I mentioned that building owners are sharing data with their investors. And speaking of investors, particularly ESG and impact investors, we're seeing massive growth in that area and tons of interest in investing for impact. But we're also seeing a lot of pushback over claims of greenwashing. And I want to really stress the old adage, what gets measured gets done. And you can see that AutoCASE's assessments, which all combined are over $100 billion in successful assessments to date, are making a change in the world already. And these types of changes actually matter. And it's in the measuring in order to get done that really makes the difference if we are to successfully transition into a sustainable, resilient, and low carbon world. And we do those measurements.
One last question to you. How has the company fared since my investment last year?
I'm going to rephrase that question slightly. What did we do with that capital that people on the screen invested last year? Well, first of all, in the last 12 months, we nearly doubled our annual recurring revenue from software to over 80%. Second, we reduced our churn and we achieved 111% net revenue retention, which is better than the industry median of 99%. And it's a strong indicator of product stickiness and future growth. So we're quite proud of that. And finally, probably most importantly, we increased the value of the company by 33% over a period when the Standard & Poor's 500 experienced an 11.23% decrease in value. So we made good use of your money, and we've got big plans ahead, and we expect big things from new investments in this current round. So back to you, Steph, to wrap things up.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you for your time, everyone, for listening in live, or if you watch the recorded version. If you have questions, we're more than happy to answer them. That's one of the things we like, I think, about the StartEngine platform. Send us comments on the campaign page. That's the official way to do it. Send us questions directly. We're more than happy. We are extremely responsive, especially to our existing investors, but for potential investors as well. So on behalf of John, thank you. John, go ahead.
I just want to mention again, Steph, we're going to send a recording or a video of this session out to everybody who was, or we're going to make a link available to everybody who was invited. So if you're like Brian Gallagher and you managed to make time to join us today, if you want to watch it again, Brian, live it up, buddy.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.